morning, and welcome to this new day in Open Space in English, where we will be sharing every Wednesday from 10 to 12, and also every Sunday 10 to 12, and 7 to 9, our comprehensions, our movement, our method, the way in which 30 people have been living in this conscious community in Madrid for the past, what is it now, 40 days, 45 days? Who's counting? And we want to dedicate these 2 days, Wednesday and Sunday, to doing it fully in English so that all of our audience who is not naturally Spanish speaking can also receive our words closer, with more proximity, although I'm aware that we have wonderful translators. A lot of people were asking us for this space to happen also in English. And it's also interesting to invite the Spanish audience to hear something in English and receive the echoed translation. So today I have with me Iris, who's living here in Madrid, and she lived in Marbella and also in the conscious community in Milan, Rome, Berlin. She's the expert. She's the conscious community nomad. Yeah. And Rebecca, who's from Ireland, from Waterford, where we have a holistic epicenter. And she'll be also leading and being a reference point for many of you who are part of this international community. And Fernando from Argentina and a little bit of Italy.
Yeah.
On papers.
Yeah, on papers.
And he's lived in the community of Uruguay,
yeah.
Madrid,
Marbella,
and Waterford.
Yeah.
Another nomad.
And he's also a psychologist, so he was part of the panel yesterday in a new space, which is Beyond Psychology.
Yeah.
Which was very interesting. Yesterday was the first day and it was amazing. I wanted to ask you, Fernando, are you also a psychoanalyst or is that just your own interest?
No, it's you do like a training, also like a formation to become a psychoanalyst. Yeah, I've studied about that.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether it was just your personal passion or...
No, it's part of
it's part of your training.
You choose like a branch when you're gonna start working as a psychologist and you present yourself as neurocognitive, you say, or
I suppose.
Yeah, I know the word in English. I don't know, but or psychoanalyst,
right?
Sounds right. Yeah,
correct. Yeah. So it's something a branch you choose. Yeah.
So I actually wanted us to take some time today because the past week has been very deep, very intense for all of us, I would say. We had our leadership and mentoring program last weekend, and that has very quickly become the most profound and intense, I don't know what to call it, space, even for the people on the team. Call it a retreat, call it a training, call it what you will, but the being part of this training, which goes beyond leading and mentoring, has put us all in a position of looking at ourselves from the mirror given by other people when they listen to us speak in public, in this case. And it's very sensitive when we start talking about the way in which we speak, the way in which we communicate or not. And that moves very, very deep things in everyone. So I would like to share it, for us to share a little bit with our audience how that happened for us.
Yeah, something that now that you're starting with the topic, something that now came to me as a summary, let's say, is when Alberto was saying that when we communicate, it's not only with languages, but actually it's in between words, in this silence, that we transmit a message, because it's that we talk from a special place inside of us, and that is manifested not only through words, but also in the way you sit, the way the gestures and your manners to talk, to move, That's for me. That was very, very interesting to deepen.
Yeah, and I related very much to the voice, the tone of voice. Even the volume of the voice, the voice that you use, and it's all reflected on where the thought is coming from, where the feeling is coming from when you're talking, is expressed in all of those forms of communication.
Yeah, actually, both Rebecca and Iris did their public speech this last training module, and it was quite intense, even emotionally, and I would say even development-wise, or self-inquisition-wise.
Yeah, definitely.
Would you like
maybe you want to share a little bit of what happened for you, and also I would also like to introduce or link in the even deeper part of the program where we went into the I don't know whether I should call it, maybe Fernando can help me out, the unconscious script that we have, or the script of our unconscious. Because it's almost the same, but there is a subtle difference.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more the script
of our unconsciousness that then manifests unconsciously.
Yes.
Which is an unconscious script until you discover it or identify it, and then it's the script of the unconsciousness.
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Now try to say that again, but slowly.
Yeah.
Because I have a feeling that our translators are like,
what are you saying?
Sweating.
Yeah.
So it's an unconscious script while we're not aware of it. And once we identify that script, it becomes the script of the unconscious.
I hope someone wrote that down.
Well, recording it.
I forgot.
Oh no, we're on TV.
So
yes,
about becoming aware of it, isn't
becoming
it?
aware of the script, which we basically deepened into the script of the value, how we value, let's say, the worthiness
and ability, the worthiness, ability, and existence. Importance.
And so it was what we went into is the message that we received and engraved, and that became an imprint, as in, I am worth this or that, or not worth this or that. I exist or I don't exist. And then we left it in the I can or I cannot, which is something that we're going to go into this weekend, Friday and Saturday. So that's a bit also to introduce that to the people who are watching us now, so they know that the I can or I cannot will be deepened into this weekend, Friday and Saturday evening with Alberto, because, well, we simply couldn't wait another month for it. So we decided to do it now. But in the meantime, I think the I am worth or unworthy and the exist or don't exist already opened up a lot.
Maybe to say one more thing about the I can, I cannot. What came to me yesterday after we talked about the yes and no, I had no idea how much of my belief about myself, what I can and what I cannot do, how that is reflected in my ability to say yes or no. That's something that came to me yesterday after the session that we had with Liana, after talking about how the way my parents said yes or no to me and how consistent they were, how that affects the belief that I have about what I can and what I cannot do. And this is something that was very deep for me yesterday to see that, because I've never even thought about that before.
So the way in which your parents said yes or no to you is reflected on your belief of what you're able or not able to do.
Basically, yes. So that would be like when, let's see. So if my family projected on, supported me in creating the belief that I can do anything, I will be able to say yes and sustain that yes. Well, I'm making a conclusion here, so this is a character needing a conclusion.
It's a German one.
It's a German one. Let's suppose
The scientist.
the scientist. Yeah, and so then if my mother never said a no to me with authority, anything I say no to will always have the option, but maybe yes.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the basin that I saw yesterday. Like in the moment I say yes to something, until now, almost all of my moments to say yes were always yes, but no. Yes, but maybe I'm gonna say no later, because in the depth I was connected to the belief that probably I cannot do it, which is what I had perceived from my family. And so the no would then be no, well, probably not, but maybe I'm gonna change my mind. So like no authority and no self-confidence either. And I saw that, like I saw my decisions like, yeah, this is why.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Not only for you, for everyone. What feels more threatening to you? The challenge of upholding a yes or the challenge of upholding a no?
For me, it's the yes.
For me, it's the no.
I need subtitle for upholding.
Upholding, sustaining.
Sustaining.
I think actually upholding is the
question,
right word.
Can you
more than
repeat the
sustaining.
question?
Follow through.
Follow through.
Can you repeat the question?
What feels more threatening?
Uh-huh.
The challenge of upholding a yes or the challenge of upholding a no?
We know that it's the same, but when you said it, I felt it's more in my case, to sustain the yes, commitment, and yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what about you, Laura?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm the only one that straight away when you said it, I thought I can say yes to many things and stand behind that responsibility to follow through. From a deep sense of I've said yes, so I must. But when I say no, I question why I say no. Mm-hmm. You know, why did I say no? Maybe I should. You know, is there a reason that I said no?
So you go
and I question it.
You go against your own.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Well, what I realized, because I thought up until this week, so earlier this week, I asked for a mystical encounter with Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
And I had it.
Wow.
And then sometimes you deserve exactly what you get. But let's say that I had thought that my problem or my conflict with authority was about upholding a no. Mm-hmm. Because I would say no, but I might change my mind. And if it was a no to someone, maybe if you then deserve it, I don't want to be too rigid. Mm-hmm. I want to be flexible. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be, authoritarian, whatever. I don't want to be wrong. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say no and then have that no be a mistake somehow. Mm-hmm. And then what I realized for me is that this had become a very strategic way of having a neurotic negotiation with the no in order to never say yes. But not yes. Like for you, it's very clear that the problem with yes is to commitment. That's not necessarily, or at least not superficially, what I felt my issue. Or maybe yes. Because I can say yes, if I commit to something, I will follow through. That's clear. And maybe that's also part of why I have such a hard time saying yes. But last week or 2 weeks ago in this program, we had one of the panels about saying yes to everything. And what I realized this week was that saying yes to everything is one thing, but saying yes to nothing is a greater leap for me, because it's saying yes, I don't know to what. Like Alberto said yesterday, I have an offer.
A game.
I have a game. And I've been on that side of Alberto's game. And it's true. I've always said yes because there's an implicit trust that I have on him. So, but it's yes to ...
I would like to share something. Actually, this morning when I woke up, I had a message from a friend, let's say ex-patient from Argentina. I was sharing this with Rebecca, and connecting now with this saying yes or no, and the game that Alberto was sharing yesterday. For those people who maybe were not here before yesterday, it's Alberto said the game is first you say yes, and then I will tell you the proposal. And for me that was kind of, and he explained it one day in Marbella, that's about life. Life is like this. You say yes to life without knowing what's going to come, and then life, let's say it's a metaphor, sends things for you to experience. It's not that you can decide what to receive and what not to receive from life. So talking with this person was really interesting, because I was trying, in this character of the integrator, psychologist, whatever, I was integrating myself, and I felt it like when you really are identified with what you think you are, the character, the identity, the mind, the ego, whatever you want to call it, the resistance is coming from that part. From no, I want it that way. It's like you're just focused in one point of the universe, of the existence, and the no or the yes is coming from that. It's not yes if it's this way, and no if it's not this way, that I believe. and I was trying to transmit this, and in this practice of trying to transmit, I connected really with this. It's a lie that I can say yes or no, because life is atravesar. It's going through my body. It's entering in every, how do you say, poro in English? Pore in every pore, every time. So if I'm not feeling it, it's because I'm disconnected. I'm in the mind, focus on this point, and I'm not aware that life is, I am life. I am the existence. I am God. I am the creator. So saying yes or saying no, I connected is an illusion. Actually, the yes is happening. So you can either choose to live in the illusion of that you're saying no, or being aware that we're saying yes all the time to life.
Would be like whether you say yes or no, life is happening anyway.
Yes. You may as well say yes.
Yes. What I realized also that, of course, the no was I want it my way.
Yeah.
And that the challenge would be to say yes to things not being my way.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe they will happen in a way that I will like or not.
And
But
that,
yes.
and that's the, thank you for saying it, because it's what I'm trying to express. It's my way. It's not my way. It's my way. What are we talking about? I mean, life is
The way.
and it's your way. I mean, if you think it's not your way, it's because we are disconnected. You know what I mean? It's this is what I felt this morning, and actually, and in the phone I was. Thank you, Paula is her name. Thank you, Paula, because I'm actually listening to myself through you. So it's beautiful.
And really, if we're saying no, it's about trying to control the future, which is for me, it's the root of all anxiety, because we're trying to say, no, I don't want it like this, I don't want it like that, I don't want it like this, I want it my way. And sometimes it's just creating this well, actually a no too. No, you cannot control exactly what's going to happen in life every day. And it's actually much simpler, for me anyway, to just say yes to life, to however life presents itself to me, and there's no stress because you're not trying to control everything about it. When you're saying either yes or no, it's about controlling.
But yeah, it's almost like whether you're saying yes or no to my way, you're going into the future from the past.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, because this happened to me before, I'm not going to let that happen again. So I'm going to do it this way, or I want life to happen this way.
From the urge to control.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah.
For me, until yesterday, it was really complicated to comprehend how to say yes to everything without freaking out about everything. It's like when I always say yes, when somebody asks me something, at some point there's not going to be, like, it's almost like there's not going to be anything left of me. Like if somebody wants something, I'll say yes. I realize how that happens to me with projects sometimes. Like saying yes to everything can, like, I felt like would lead me to not being able to do everything, to not be able to sustain that yes. And then yesterday night after the session, I started writing again more. I realized how important it is for me to write, and I wrote down exactly that. I wrote down yes to myself, yes to life, and then I started writing no, like no to, and then I realized that I need the no to say no to my unconscious mechanisms of resistance, of manipulation, like no to the part of me that wants to keep me stuck somewhere, no to the part of me that acts from the wound, from the necessity, from something, like from the part of me that lacks something, from the past, basically. No to the past. And then somehow naturally emerges like there's no need to decide anything because the decision is already, and then I know when to say no to something when I can see the mechanism behind. Then it's not actually no, it's just the natural happening. It might manifest itself as a no, but it will be the no to following the same path, which is a yes to life.
I would like to connect what you're saying now, the no, and maybe invite you, if you would like to share a bit about yesterday's session with this no and the authority that we have in Spanish on the board. Because we're talking about the yes and saying yes or saying no to mechanisms. Would you like maybe to share a bit about the authority and the no? How did you feel?
Yes. it's interesting because yesterday, all that thing that's going on the board, that was a reflection of my family and how it's being passed down. And of course, it would seem coincidental somehow, but of course it's not. It's amazing because truly, like I said yesterday, my household, my mother was in charge. Even the respect was all for my father. The respect was clearly for my father. There was never any doubt. But the rules were set by my mother. But I always knew that she could not handle me if I got into my worst fit. Clearly, that's happening again.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like this hidden power that my parents had given me. Because I always knew also that if I went to my father, he was going to stick up for me. It didn't matter
what.
And of course, that can happen, although Bruno and I are trying really to put our consciousness into this pattern. And he grew up without a father because his father died when he was very young. So it's even more mechanical in his case. However, so for Bruno, he would probably say that I say no to Liana a lot. And it's true, I say no a lot. But it's not a no that I uphold. But I say no a lot. So it's a bit functional. And out of all the phrases that were there, the one that most resonated with me, my no to Liana, was the one that Iris said. Of course, you know, she plays with advantage because we've lived together for a long time, which is later. It's not a no, it's later. And sometimes that's valid, not now, later. But it's true that when it becomes, the definition of no becomes later, then there's no no. There is no no. And it's not directly related with that, apparently, but since it's something that took place shortly thereafter, it must. And I was having a conversation with someone, and without going into too many details, I decided that I was going to say yes. And then at one point in the conversation, the person said, I am unconditional to myself. And what hit me in that moment, and I replied, was, my yes means that I stop being unconditional to me, to myself, to that I.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing I've been unconditional to is I. Because I know what I want. I know that I don't want humiliation, rejection, abandonment. So I'm going to do everything. And all my yeses and all my nos are going to be strategically directed to avoid any possibility of the shadow of, specifically in this moment, humiliation.
Wow.
So that's something for us, because we'll be doing a workshop on original wounds on Sunday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., Fernanda and I. So we'll go a little bit deeper into these subjects of humiliation, rejection, and the mechanisms, unconscious scripts that are created from that too.
Yeah.
What just came to me is the memory of a conversation that we had, you and me, Laura, a while ago. In one stage of my process, I was very focused on what I want and what I don't want, and trying to be very attentive to anything that I want, to not do that based on the fear of acting from the I. And I remember in that moment, I said to you something, well, this is my way right now to study my unconscious by looking at what I want and what I don't want, but not doing anything related to that, which in a way in that phase made me very passive, because I wouldn't dare to do anything out of fear of doing it from the I. But I remember in that moment talking about it, and you said something, well, I do what I want. And in that moment, I didn't know what that meant. Like, I kind of felt, well, how can she do what she wants? Like, how can she not be afraid that it could be from the I? And maybe partly it was from the I, but I was so stuck in that. Like, it was important to be in that phase. I see that now, but I was very I was very thankful for this program that we had, the POI. How it would be in English? The
Program of
Unconditional Obedience
unconditional
program.
obedience.
Can you repeat it?
The program of unconditional obedience. Yeah. That we implemented in the organization in a moment of trying, well, in the moment of not knowing where you decide from, to have somebody else decide for you, just to say yes, basically, unconditionally, to somebody deciding for you. And for me, it was essential, that part of the process, because I was so confused where I was deciding from. And I don't know, just this discussion came to me, this conversation that we had about doing what I want or not doing what I want, because in the end, who is the one that wants?
Deciding.
There's something that Alberto said yesterday, and I immediately wrote and published. Sometimes you have to be very quick,
Yeah.
and it's very related to what you're saying. Let me see if I can find it.
I think I saw it.
Here it is.
Oh.
Knowing to say yes or no, even if you're mistaken, is part of exploring freedom. So,
Yeah. That. Oh, yeah.
yeah, Rebecca wanted to.
Yeah, kind of gone back to the yes or no with Liana last night, your 4-year-old. I was thinking about, in my case, I've worked in childcare for 25 years, and I'm kind of, while I'm discovering all these new ideas about the yes and the no, and going inside to see how I've made those decisions up to now in the way that I have trained the staff in the childcare service that I run. And I was always very specific about the fact that I always felt that children had been told no too many times, and that, this word freedom that you just used was exactly what I wanted to be able to provide for these children, was some sense of freedom and expression. And I'm still kind of going back over this. Maybe as I'm saying it now, it might come clear to me whether I was going down the right path, let's say, with the way that the way that I trained this staff working with the children. And my idea was that there are certain areas that you need to say no in order to provide safety for the children. So there's boundaries, and boundaries create security for children, that they know where the boundary is. So the first principle was really, we need to make sure that the children understand the boundaries. These are the rules. You don't go here, you don't go there, you don't climb up on the shelf up to the top, and you don't hit other children, things like that, no biting.
No biting.
No biting. It's a big deal. It's a big thing, comes up often. But, this is the rules. So my idea was that we make sure that the children all know these rules, that we discuss these rules, and then there's no need to say no all the time, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that if they, you know, if children hear no consistently, it's, you know, my thinking was that this creates a rebellion, you know, to go that they're so sick of hearing no all the time. Oh, stop that! Don't do that! Stop climbing! Stop hitting! Stop this! And I feel like children are bombarded with no so much, which then, you know, is maybe why we're almost afraid to say no to them, because we know that we want them to have freedom. So we say yes to many things that we could say no to. So this was kind of a guiding principle in my childcare service, that you cannot say no to the children. You create the boundaries so that they know already what the boundaries are, and there's no need to consistently stop them from doing things. And if their behavior needed to be corrected, it needed to be expressed in a positive way, such as we walk inside, rather than saying don't run, or stop running, or stop climbing, you know, all sorts of things. So I'm just exploring while we're talking about, you know, while I was looking at Leanna, and we're talking about this authority and how we can sort of allow a 4-year-old to find her own authority within, to make her own decisions about, okay, so I know I'm not supposed to be biting this other child, but shall I say, yes, I feel like biting him? Will I bite him, or will I stop myself from biting? You know, and allowing the children to find that authority in order to decide for themselves whether they should move forward in the behavior that they choose. So obviously then this relates to us as adults.
Yeah, I would like to invite us to go deeper in what is written in the whiteboard. And if you can check again your post on Facebook to connect everything, it's in the board. It says what is the unknown? Yesterday we started like this. What is that we don't know? What is the unknown? And we started this game of comprehension with Alberto yesterday, and it consists in giving some words, you know, to what you think is the unknown, and many words started to appear. And at the end, at a certain point, this is no end. At a certain moment, Alberto said, the unknown is the authority. So it's the word no. And I think we're moving from the yes to everything, and trying not to touch this unknown that yesterday appeared like the authority, the no. And you said is creating this safe environment, these boundaries. So now it's resonating like the unknown, like the mystery, like freedom. I think that's why I asked you to read it again. And the no, how can we relate those energies, those words?
It's interesting because when Alberto asked what is the unknown, the word that I said was freedom. The unknown is freedom. So obviously there's a relationship between authority and freedom. But it is true, probably for the four of us sitting on this couch, that we don't have a clear imprint of authority. Therefore, we don't have a clear imprint of freedom.
And love.
Hopefully it's going to become clearer as well.
Yeah.
Because actually this topic that we're going into about conscious parenting, becoming conscious parents and loving guides, is one that I asked Alberto for, because I became very aware for myself, and from what you're saying, Rebecca, it sounds like it's the same thing. Because we don't want to mechanically reproduce our own conditioning, we go the other way, to the other extreme. So then we're basically reproducing it, but from another light, let's say.
Yes.
So because we received so many unconscious no's, now we want to give unconscious yes to everything.
Yeah.
But there's still not a conscious imprint of yes and no. And for years, I've heard Alberto say that every certain number of yes that you give to a child, there has to be a no. Otherwise, it's like the yes doesn't have any value, any weight, if there's not a no. And that it doesn't matter where the no falls. Because I also had this thing, when he shared about this situation with Shania, with Bear's kid, where he said, you don't throw things. And then I asked him, when you say to a kid, you don't do this without explaining anything, aren't you sort of thrusting upon them a moral or a principle? And he said, Laura, you didn't get it. It doesn't matter where the no falls. There has to be a no. And in that situation, he threw something, so that's where the no fell. No, you don't throw.
And what, sorry, I've lost it. My mind went off onto another point about that. But another one of the main principles that I used with my staff was, before you say no, make sure it's a no. Before you say no to a child, check that you're going to follow through.
Yeah.
Because if you say no and it should have been a yes, then the child knows that they're going to change it around into a yes. And that's when they won't understand what no means. So I think this was an important one that I used a lot in the childcare setting was, and with my children. My children knew if I said no, that was it. There was no point, oh, but please, can I? No, I didn't put up with that. No was a no. But I never said no if it could have been yes. I would say, give me a minute. They'd know I'd think it through. Can I do this, ma'am? Well, let me think. No. And they knew that was it. And that's the principle that I carried through with the childcare setting to the staff. You cannot say, you lose authority when you change your mind from a no to a yes. You lose the respect that the children lose that sense of security of knowing that the adult is leading them.
And would it happen the other way around? Would you lose authority if you go from a yes to a no?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Can I?
Or maybe not lose authority, but the children would be confused.
Can I interfere?
Yes, you can.
You can even interrupt.
Yeah, can I interrupt? Yes. No, because I'm listening, and what I think I'm listening is, we know that it's very important to be aware the words that we are saying, because we are transmitting something and someone is listening. So I was thinking, who is listening to these words? Because if it's being received by characters, as we know they are, I was thinking, so I have to know before saying yes or no. I have to, So if this is the part that is listening, red light.
Yeah.
So now I was feeling more like this how do you call it, parenting, the
Conscious
parenting and loving guidance.
conscious parenting and loving
So
guidance.
it would be
guidance.
conscious parenting and loving guidance.
And loving guidance. I like that, because for me it's totally connected with this, and it's a process, let's say, that parents, oh, be careful with these words. It's very interesting that, let's say, parents can go through this process because it's something internal, something that is not that you have to know before saying it or not. It's something more internal that you feel, and it's from an internal position that yes or no comes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's and so the energy that we transmit, it's totally consistent. I don't know how to say. It's not just, oh no, I will say no. I have to think about this because this is the mind.
Yes.
And it's this is what I felt now that you were.
Mhm.
Yes, because if you say no to something or yes to something, and then the circumstances change, something happens, and you stick to your no just because,
Yes.
you're going to lose authority.
Yeah.
You're going
Yes.
to lose credibility.
Credibility, that's the word. Yes. Yeah, in parenting and in, you know, and with yourself, I suppose it must transfer to ourselves. But I suppose I was talking in very concrete terms, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Can I go to my friend's house?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
or can I go outside? And, you know, well, it's raining, you don't have a coat, you know, practical, real things. And then we, you know, this is the way that I'm relating things, going to these ideas of how I think yes and no comes up, and then going, okay, so how does that relate to me and life and the things that are not known? It's maybe two different messages I'm giving, in the sense that, as we were saying, in life, we can't control it. We can't know what's going to happen. But can we change our mind after saying a no? Yes. Otherwise, you know, if circumstances change, if the outside circumstances change, and we then can reevaluate and say, actually, maybe I should say yes about that. You know, and I think also being flexible is necessary in parenting as well, and loving guidance. But it comes back to figuring out what your own boundaries are, and setting up the atmosphere and the energy to know what it's about, knowing yourself, your character, you know, your script, the characters that have been created from that unconscious script. And whether, you know, for me at the moment, I'm when I'm trying to make a decision, I'm trying not to evaluate everything. I'm trying to just feel it and go with the yes.
I want to ask if there's anyone that's making comments or questions. Okay. And remind that if anyone wants to make a comment or ask a question, you can do that on the chat of the webinar, and we'll address them. Yeah.
What just came to me while listening to Rebecca was translating what we're talking about to the communa we live in together. And I was reflecting upon the no's that we're receiving here. And I remembered a conversation that I had with Ciro, who's today responding to comments, about whether or not it's necessary to be able to comprehend why a decision is a no, to be able to accept it. And I'm not at all clear on this, so that's why I bring it up, because I want to hear what you guys think about this. And it was a decision about I think it had to do with the kitchen. It was the moment when it was decided that we will wash our dishes outside, because with 30 people, it happens that the kitchen is not as clean as we wish it to be for unconscious behaviors. And so we decided we have a sink outside where everybody, still needs to be clean, obviously, but the decision was made that was separate words. We're washing outside. And we were talking about that whether or not it's necessary words to comprehend why the decision has been made in order to be able to accept the no. And I was in that moment, I thought that it's not necessary if I have said the unconditional yes towards accepting the rules of the house. If I'm unconditional with my obedience, with saying yes to being here in this space with these rules, I don't question the rules, even though I might not like them, but I don't question them. And I know that some people need to know why things are decided to be able to accept a no. And I would like to hear how you feel about this, because to me that's something I don't understand.
I feel like with that in particular, I needed to go into my thoughts about, well, why did they make that decision? What could be the reasons for making that decision? Well, I suppose there's 30 people here. The kitchen's not that big. We're queuing up to wash our plate and bowl, and it gets crowded, and people. So I didn't ask anybody what the reason was, but I could sort of go into my mind and justify, okay, it's not ideal because outside doesn't have hot water. So that was it's like, okay, but we can use lots of soap and scrub the thing. And I went through this whole process in my mind of justifying somebody else's decision.
So there is the need to justify to be able to accept a no.
But if I disagreed, what would I have done? If I strongly felt this is wrong, we cannot wash our dishes outside, would I trust the decision, knowing or supposing that maybe they know something more than I do about the overall picture of something that's happening? Or would I have gone and said, this is wrong. Tell me why we need to wash them outside, But because I was able to satisfy myself that, yes, I can understand the reasons for that. But I did question it, and I did need to have some sort of answer within me to say, I agree. Let's do it. And it was actually, it's a good point, because it was something that I went, what's the pros and cons here? What were the decision makers thinking when they made this decision? It's such a small thing, but yet I did spend some time thinking about whether, do I agree with this decision or not?
What comes to me is that it has to do, and again, like Fernando said, we must be aware of who's listening, but I'm going to say it and then we can clarify if needed. It has to do with the purity or the impurity of our thoughts. Because if there's no trace within us of any possible abuse, injustice, etc., there's no questioning an order. But because our purity, our inherent purity, has been impacted upon, we have that imprint that orders can be unfair, can be abusive.
Yes. Yeah.
So we don't trust. And what I wanted to clarify is that when we use purity and impurity, we're not talking about morals or values or religions or virginity or anything. We're talking about how when we're born, we are 100% pure. We don't even have an imprint of guilt and innocence. It's truly an original state, like original setting. When we receive this original wound, the impact, and then we say, oh, but that was abusive. Oh, that hurt. That remains ingrained within us. So then when we look outside, we don't trust. We say, there's a possibility, like Rebecca said before, that what happened before is happening again. The past is becoming the future. Many years ago, in a conversation with Sergio, a very random conversation, I realized that the need to comprehend is another sophisticated way of needing to control. I need to comprehend in order to accept. Well, let's see. I think there's a question or a comment. Ciro, if you want to share.
Yes, it's about. It's from Iogan. He asked, does the inability to say yes and no decisively lead to personal incredibility? As I do, you doubt yourself.
So does the inability to say yes or no lead to personal incredulity because you doubt yourself?
Yeah.
Incredulity?
When you don't believe, you don't believe yourself.
Incredibility.
Yes.
Because you doubt yourself. That's the question. Does it lead to? Is there any way you could reword that?
I think it's the chicken and the egg question. It's the who was there first. Because for me, it would be if when I'm doubting myself, I don't know how to say yes or no. But it could also be that from not being able to say yes or no, I would be doubting myself because I know that I don't know what I'm saying. So for me, that would be the, who was there first. Do you know who was there first? Mom. But but she had the same problem.
She also had a mum.
Yes.
The first mum.
The original mum.
Okay, it's Eve's fault.
So then the original mum.
Or the tree.
The thing is, like Iris said, when we're in a chicken and egg situation, it's somehow a mental distraction to avoid connecting with the root. Because what we're talking about is lack in ourselves because we didn't receive trust from the outside. And that receiving trust from the outside has to do with receiving authority and love.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, coming back to, it's the same topic, but coming back to this living in communal community, as Iris was sharing. I will share this and then you tell me what you feel, because I know it's just words and it's a way of expressing it. It's like I feel somehow we can say consciousness is here in this community, despite the fact we call our chat unconscious community. And in this consciousness, we are all together. It's like we are all creators. We are all responsible of this decision. As you said, I decided, it is not. It decided to come here and create this. And at the same time, like in another dimension, are all these characters in this show, in this game, thinking that, like, who decided it? Who made this decision of cleaning or washing the dishes outside, inside, with hot water, with cold water, with that, whatever. So it's, as you said, we have also this opportunity to be distracted with the mind and mistrust and trust or whatever. But at the same time, consciousness is here, so everything is perfect. I don't know if you're following my speech, because this again, who's listening, who's talking, who's deciding, who. We know that the who goes to characters. So, and we are in this game. The game of living in a community is about observing all these things, and that's why it's so funny. Sometimes triggering.
Somehow a conscious game played by unconscious players.
Yes.
Somehow.
Wow, I like that.
Somehow.
Yeah.
Who think they're
Wow.
I think they're conscious.
Yes. I like that. Wow. Can you repeat that?
A conscious game played by unconscious players who think they're conscious.
I love that.
They're in the illusion.
Yeah.
Iris wanted to say.
To me, this comes back to another thing we've been talking about a bit earlier in one of the missions, maybe last week or the week before, about taking responsibility for everything. Basically, the realization of the fact that we are creating everything together. And maybe that is, how is that really true authority? I'm thinking now. Because if I'm aware that I'm the one creating what's happening in this community, that the unconscious behavior that's being expressed is the expression of my unconsciousness, even if me personally, maybe I'm not the one leaving the cup, but it is my unconsciousness creating the situation of the cup being left, which would naturally lead me to accepting anything that's been decided, because I would be aware that this is my decision being taken by somebody who's just speaking up. And I'm losing myself here because I don't know how to relate that now to authority, because
it's trusting authority.
It's trusting authority. It's my relationship with the outside world being impacted by my parents, and that being expressed in the way I'm relating to the outside world. Yeah, I lost myself there.
I would like to continue, maybe. I don't know if I'm going to continue, but what Laura said impacted me. When you were talking about the wound and this impact, because you said wound first, and then you said it hurt. And I was like, whoa. And this then was the, let's say, cause to create this mistrust. I mean, I'm just saying, okay? Then you can please correct, let's say. So what I'm trying to say now is that then you said that's why now I can't receive an order because I mistrust. And what I'm trying to say is whenever now I receive an order, that you come and you ask me something, or in the community we decide something, if I can observe that there's no wound, it's a conclusion that I've made, blah, 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 blah. If I can really be in that position and from that place, I can receive everything opened. And this yes again comes back to my speech, like being opened to everything. I don't know if you're following my speech. Maybe you can help me to.
Well, the thing, how I feel is that when you place yourself in that position, the mistrust is no longer the effect. It's the cause. Because what you said is, because it hurt, now I mistrust. So you put mistrust as an effect. Instead of, if you really want to become the cause, then you say the mistrust is the effect. the mistrust that I received from the outside and I made mine
Wow.
is the cause.
Wow.
And then it shifts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Like Alberto says, some things start off as an effect and they become the cause. It's it becomes an entity with life and form and force of its own.
And also now that when we were saying about this, when you said, and then I repeated this, and it hurts. I was feeling, because not thinking, I was feeling as if it hurts, it's because the mind is already there.
Yes.
You know what I mean? The I is already there, structured. That's why something feels the pain. I don't know if you're following this, but it's like, because otherwise,
it's definitely something to go deeper into.
Yeah.
It's as if the wound ends up having a life of its own that takes over. Because before that, there's been a perception. And after the perception, there's been an identification with what we perceived. That then becomes an experience that we repeat over and over.
And this is how the wound can become who we think we are.
Yes, we
live
identified.
We live from I am somebody that has this wound. You know,
a beautiful entity soul is coming. So
in search of food.
In search of food. It's a beautiful. Welcome. Thank you, gracias. It's Rio. Hello, Rio.
Hello, Rio.
Say hi.
Say hello.
Purity is on air.
Yeah.
That makes me remember, and I somehow feel like advertising what we're doing here. That's why I want to talk about another show that we made, where we talked about how we start to identify, and now Rio being here makes me want to talk about that again in a way, like to reconnect to the idea that when we're being born, we don't have the awareness of who we are. We don't have any identification of anything. We're just there. We are connected, and with time we start to identify things. With time we start to realize, like in the beginning we are united with everything. We receive, like before we get born, we're just receiving food without knowing that it could be not there. Then we are born and we start to be still identified with the mother. We're one with the mother, and we receive the food whenever we need to by crying. And then how with the development we're starting to realize things, to identify things of being different to us. And by realizing that difference, we are separating ourselves. So by that, probably Rio is now in the process of realizing that he is not the same as Laura, but that he is separate. So he starts to discover his body. And now I don't remember what was first, whether first we start to realize that our body is something that is there, or whether the emotions come first. But that's what we talked about, like how we identify first with the mother, because this is who we were in the beginning. Then the next thing would be the body, and then the next thing is the emotions.
I'm not sure the order.
Opposite.
I don't remember.
Maybe it's the opposite. But just to finish that line of thought, that would mean that if the emotion is who I am, and the emotion is kind of like, and a trauma is happening, in that moment, I need to be identified with that because I believe to be the emotion. So a trauma as an imprint is something that is in that moment impossible to avoid, which could lead me, like, if I am the process of rejecting it, like if I judge myself for being identified with my trauma, this comprehension would lead me to acceptance, because in the moment I received the traumatic imprint, it was unavoidable to be identified with the trauma. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's give some time to breathe.
Yeah. But it's how we see it, how we look back on it, how we perceive the trauma, the wound, that changes, I think, as we grow.
Yeah. To me, it just starts with the acceptance of it being unavoidable to be identified.
Yeah. Yeah. Instead of fighting it, accepting it.
It's really interesting. This morning when we woke up, I fed Rio, it must have been 8 o'clock in the morning. Between 7:30 and 8 something. And then I started thinking, he's eating now. He's gonna get hungry around 11. But maybe not. Because there's really no reason for a 5-month-old baby to still get hungry every 3 hours. But I had the thought. I will say that it is now 20 past 11.
Yeah.
So it's very how the thoughts create something.
Yeah. And Paula's probably been holding him back for 10 or 15
For
minutes.
a bit. Well, probably not a lot, because at the same time, Paula has this thought that every time he cries, he's hungry.
Mhm.
And I've demonstrated to her sometimes that it's not the case.
Yeah.
And if you notice, he was quite calm.
You're getting
He wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't a starving baby screaming bloody murder.
No.
But clearly, the thought
The thought
had
was
of
that
two
he was
women
hungry.
had created a reality. A few weeks ago, we had a satsang, and well, Liana was in the room, and I asked her to be silent, and she was tired anyway. Alberta riled her up a little bit, also to say that. But anyway, eventually I had to take her to bed because she wasn't being that quiet. And she fell asleep, and it was perfect. And then so for the next satsang, I said to her, no, this time you can't be in the room because last time you weren't quiet. You didn't keep the deal. And she screamed and she cried, but then she fell asleep. And then at one moment I thought, I should take her to the bathroom before she falls asleep. And I said, I'll do it later when I come back from the satsang. So she fell asleep. And I went to the satsang and everything was going well. And suddenly, mommy, she'd wet the bed. So I went for her. And then I thought, how did that happen? Because I can't say, oh, coincidence, because I clearly knew before putting her to bed, she should go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
It was this unconscious, God knows what mechanism. Partially guilt, partially self-sabotage, partially, I don't even have a label for it.
Yeah.
But there was a clear situation that was created by my somewhat unconscious, because it wasn't that unconscious.
Yeah.
And it's this interaction between our thoughts and our reality that probably becomes more significant when there's a bond as you have with
tight connection.
Yeah, that you have with your children.
Yeah.
What just came to me while you talked about that is how also, even by saying, because last time you weren't quiet, this time you cannot come because you will not be quiet, you are using the past to create the future.
And sure enough, she wasn't quiet.
Yeah, and
even
quiet.
without being in the room.
And by being attached to that past, you're limiting the possibility of the future because she might have been quiet this time.
Sure.
And I am observing this these days in my relationships with everyone, but in particular with Hernan, in the way that I'm based on what happened yesterday, I am expecting something to happen today. And this is something we're talking a lot about because we are in this, like we're always talking, we're not in a relationship, but we have a bond because we're trying to avoid to relate from the character, which is ridiculous because you can't avoid it. But we're, but by talking about it, we're trying to avoid being in a relationship. Based on the idea that by saying we are a couple, that we would use the idea, what it means to be a couple, to imprint the way we interact. And this has like very funny implications, like I don't know, by saying, for example, we don't want to say we're a couple, so then, for example, the idea would be to every day decide new to want to be together, and every day the decision would be made if we want to go to bed together or not, or whether we want to have lunch together or not. And it's really funny to observe, like some days we go into the habit of, since every day, like in the end we end up having lunch together every day, and then one day maybe not, and then the thought that's created in my mind by, okay, so why don't we have lunch together? What does that mean? Like,
Yeah.
small things like going back to the past, trying to create the present or the future based on that. And then the conclusion that's happening in the mind, all of this could become very complicated. And I see it becoming very complicated, and like some couples fight a lot. Like one couple that we have in the comunas has some fight sometimes, and I feel like
One couple.
Only one.
one couple. Well, and I feel like
The rest leave in perfect harmony, but one couple.
And I'm going, oh, who's that?
I just feel like by putting awareness on the expectation we're creating from the past for the present or even the future, we are making our life complicated. But then by not allowing any expectation, it's also complicated. So it's, I guess, a dance of where we are and which moment and which day.
And the moment, I think, is the key there, to stay in that moment without the mind going, why are we not having lunch today? What's behind this reasoning? Actually, there's no reason.
Yeah.
But if you stay in the moment, then you're not thinking about that yesterday we had lunch and tomorrow we might not again. And what if we don't have lunch for another 3 days?
Maybe never again.
And maybe never again. Like it's all about being in the moment. For me anyway.
I have a feeling that our translators are hating us.
Yes,
oh, sorry.
Can I? I want to share many things. One is that
Remember the translators.
Yeah.
Breathe. Well, we had this sign that said, breathe, you're on air. Now it's fucking breathe, please.
I was wondering what coño meant.
Coño,
I was going to ask.
Don't ask on air.
Just breathe.
Just breathe. So the first thing that I wanted to share is that the other day we were talking with Iris.
Today we're in the English channel, so
sorry.
we have to say Iris.
Iris. She's Irish.
So today,
Be in the moment.
We were talking on this beautiful front yard that we have here in this beautiful house. I'm not gonna share the whole conversation because it was very long, but beautiful conversation about this relationships in general, like couples, friends, whatever the name or label we want to choose. And now that you are talking, it came again the same situation. Not the same. And it came, when we label, for example, a relationship, it's incredible how every detail is already there, like an app that you download in your phone. And it's automatic. How you start to expect things, like how many times you're gonna have lunch together, how many times you're gonna maybe in a couple have sex together, or maybe not in a couple have sex together, or
Or apart.
And with Iris, what is happening, at least for me, and I think also for her, it's that I feel that we are opening ourselves to anything, to everything, to whatever comes.
Saying yes to life.
And we started to play a game unconsciously, consciously, like maybe you can help me with the games. It was, she came the other day, I think we hugged, or something like that. Okay, and it happened. And then another day, or another moment, she came and we didn't hug. So I look at her and says, why are you not hugging me now? You don't love me anymore. Like, but in a game, a conscious game, because I was expecting the hug, but you didn't hug me. And we were laughing, like, and this is expanding now in my case to every relationship. Like when I look at everyone here in this community, to see this expectation, what I expect from Rebecca in the relationship we have, or with Iris, or with whoever here. So I wanted to share that. I think we're becoming aware of these limitations.
The hidden thought
Yeah.
comes to me. The idea of the hidden thought, like by exposing it, I'm opening the space to disidentify from it. Like the other day, like saying, I don't know, every day we have lunch together, Hernan washes the dishes. And then one day he gets up and he just takes his own plate and he goes. And then and the thought that comes is, why doesn't he wash my dish now? And and in the moment that I have the thought, but I'm not exposing it, I feel like I'm giving it power. Because I'm not saying it, it might become meaningful. So I started to always say it when it comes. Like whenever I have this thought, so like we are doing as well, Fernando. Like the moment, like I don't hug you, but you were expecting it. If you say it, we can laugh about it and we can make it ridiculous, because it is ridiculous. The same thing with the plate situation. It's totally ridiculous. Like in the moment that he doesn't do what I want him to do, what he did yesterday, it can become an offense or whatever. It's like, and for me it's super important to expose these hidden thoughts, like, because the moment I say them, I can see them and everybody can see them, so that they can they can lose their power. But the moment that I don't want to say them, and I feel like maybe I need to hide them, for me it gets complicated. So I'm starting to say it whenever I can, to whoever I can.
And this is really important. I mean, everybody knows the most important, everybody says the most important thing in a relationship is communication. And this is the kind of communication that's important, that we think it's not important. Breathing is really important, especially in a relationship.
Especially in the relationship we have with our translator.
Yes, yeah.
I want to open up the space for people who are watching us, who are listening to us, and also for people who are not watching us right now with 11:30, but who will watch us later on our YouTube channel, which is now up and updated. You can just look for Canal Espacio Abierto. Maybe Ciro can write that on the chat, on YouTube. And there you will find all of our morning broadcasts already available. Because what was coming to me listening, well, over and over, is how are people who are not here living through this lockdown, this confinement? Because what Iris is sharing is probably happening to a lot of couples. How are parents handling this lockdown with their kids at home all day? where this lack of authority becomes even more apparent, or excess of authoritarianism will also become more apparent. We've had comments from some of our audience saying, I've reached the point where I cannot bear my kids anymore. I can't do this anymore. I'm aware that not all countries have gone through the extreme situation as Spain and Italy, where there's been whole families in 40 square meter apartments. And if that wasn't enough, they had to bring their parents home because the residences,
The nursing homes.
the nursing homes closed down also. And this, how are people living? How are you living this? How have you lived this lockdown? What has arisen for you in relationship to your partner, to your children, to the rest of your family? And do you want any support? Would you like to share it with us? Would you like to receive some feedback, maybe, whether online? Because we will be deepening into this topic also over the next week. We'll be sharing the topics for the upcoming week soon. But then you can also contact privately, and all of our facilitators, our integrators, our psychologists, psychotherapists, doctors are available for you. So please share with us, because obviously here we are in a big house, so there's space. Even if we live, well, Iris and Hernan have created, despite there not being a couple,
They're not a couple.
they've gone beyond having their private bedroom to having their private house with an office in it. Where
And
Hernan
2 bathrooms.
lives anyway, and 2 bathrooms.
One for each of them.
One for each of them.
Because they're not a couple.
And that is very important. Somehow, I mean, we're in the studio right now, and Hernan is another one of our tech managers. So they've set up their house in what used to be our admin office. So they have their bedroom, 2 bathrooms, and an office where Hernan is currently editing the afternoon broadcast. One day we're going to have to do a full broadcast just to present our tech team.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing what we've created here in this tent that was going to be a dining room, that was then going to be a retreat room, that then was going to be a dorm, that then was going to be the admin office, and is now a TV set.
And before it was a tent, it was a tennis court.
And
Yes.
before it was a tennis court. True, correct, very much so. But yes, please share with us what you need.
And I'd like to just also ask the people that are tuning in and the people that may watch the YouTube version of this broadcast over the week, that we generally are talking about the topics that are coming up, the topics that we're covering during the time here in Madrid and in the workshops. But if there is something that you would like us to talk about, it would be really great to be able to cover some topics that you're interested in, that are questions, situations that are coming up for you. You know, we have a huge team of people here that have a lot of I suppose thoughts and information and viewpoints that we can share together, whether it be in whether they're in Spanish or English, but we'll be broadcasting every Wednesday and Sunday, as Laura said, in English. And if there's anything in particular that you'd like us to discuss, please let us know.
Yeah, I think I didn't ask before, but I would like to say this because I want to take advantage of this video going everywhere in the world. So if you really want to contact us, I will offer my email address, and then if you want also yours, you can write to me in english.madrid@gmail.com. innermastery.es.
Sido can write that down on the chat.
.es, sorry, and you can write a message if you need. It's a Spanish code which is 34, and then it's 617-836-809, and I will be pleased to receive those messages. Maybe you can give yours also.
Or maybe Sido can just write them all down.
Yeah,
on
but
the
you know,
chat.
that's not gonna appear
It's
in the
not going to
video.
appear.
Yeah, that's why I was giving it.
Then what we'll do is we'll put it under the video.
Yeah, that would be
so
great.
that people
Or like
are
on
available.
on the video, like we can.
So the technicians here camera can, if they can then add the numbers, that'll be great. So it's like here you can write.
Oh yeah, here.
Here.
Here's the number.
You translate to hate. Translate
Yeah.
to hate.
You can see how ideas evolve in this situation.
Now that, yeah.
Following this train of thought.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say one of those things that have no explanation at all. There's about 200 of us on this team around the world.
Mm.
It's a fair amount.
Mm.
And there's theoretically 6 degrees of separation. Correct? I want to ask, is anyone in your family sick with coronavirus?
No.
No.
It is extraordinary.
In my family, someone got the coronavirus. Yeah. Oh, actually, it's not blood family, but she's like my third grandmother. And she got it, but it was not too serious for her, even though she's very, very old and very sick.
So can you repeat that, because I think
I'll repeat it because the mic didn't pick it up. So Kathy said that someone who's not from her blood family, but like her third, so an adoptive grandmother, even though she's very old, was sick with the virus, but very mildly so, although technically she should be within the vulnerable population. This came to me
She
because...
recovered.
Yes, and she recovered. This came to me because it's extraordinary. I mean, there's 200 people. None of us have been sick with the virus. I got tested because I did get sick, but it wasn't that virus. I know Kathy actually got tested too. We both were negative. No one from my family, to the best of my knowledge, was sick. My sister-in-law was quarantined because she's a nurse and she was in contact with someone who did test positive, but she wasn't. Anyway, she didn't get sick, and somehow that's extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
And the husband of my cousin was sick, but he recovered too. So there's a very small percentage of people within our team and surrounding environment that has been sick.
And also, I don't know if it's, I'm just trying also to listen to what you're saying, to be careful. Because, but yeah, we're people that we travel a lot. It's not that we are in a bubble. I mean, we are kind of in a bubble, but we are not. No, but being serious, is that we travel a lot. I'm just trying to feel what is that in the message that we are trying to transmit with these words.
Yeah, I don't know that there's any message, to be honest. It's just a realization that I had. Because also the greater part of our team are in Italy and in Spain.
Yes.
And we traveled during the lockdown against the advice from Ireland through London to Madrid. And people thought we were crazy.
Yeah, in my case also during March, before I was already in Ireland, and here it was already the lockdown in Spain and Italy, and I went to Romania and I came back to Ireland. So I saw this environment in the airport and people and this fear. Maybe in another broadcast, another program, we can go deeper into this topic about fear and the lockdown. That would be interesting to develop.
We can do that. And actually, another thing that occurred to me is that Mauricio, one of our doctors, when I was sick in Marbella, although it wasn't COVID-19, it was rotavirus, whatever, he suggested that I do Kambo because he said that according to scientific research and studies that have been done on Kambo, it would seem, and I say seem because I didn't read the studies, he did, and I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to say anything foolish. But it would seem that Kambo does something or covers the lungs with some sort of protective fluid. I could probably look in my phone to see exactly what explanation he gave me. I didn't do the Kambo because I'm breastfeeding, and well, that was a little glitch there. But apparently, most people on our team have done Kambo, almost everyone. And apparently, yes, because tomorrow at 10 to 12, we have the Entheos Planet Health and Wellness broadcast.
Like every Thursday?
So this could be one of the questions to be asked of Mauricio.
Yeah.
So again, if anyone has any questions, you can send them over today and they will be addressed tomorrow in the morning broadcast. Or you can also contact Mauricio, contact our Entheos Planet program, which includes a medical consultation with our doctors. But it's definitely something interesting, like you said.
And I had, when you were saying it there first, Laura, I had this thought about, nobody in the organization has been sick, and the majority of us would have had Kambo at some point, if not in the last year. I know that Mauricio has said that worldwide, nobody that has received Kambo has contracted the virus. Like, obviously, that's a minimal scientific study, but just that he is in contact with, he has a connection to everybody that has received Kambo in the last year or so, and it's a fact that nobody has contracted the virus. And there are antiviral amino acids, peptides in the Kambo. So it would be wonderful too, if anybody has any more questions about that, as Laura said, that they could send them in to us for Mauricio to go deeper into that, because he's done many studies on Kambo.
I would,
Or actually, I would love it if anyone knows of somebody who has had Kambo but who has contracted the virus, to hear if it is actually possible and how that went. Like if there's somebody who knows of a case of somebody who has had Kambo, to know how it was, and if to be able to disprove this theory that we're having, because it would be interesting to know that.
And I would also, one of the things that I'm going to, please remind me to speak about with Mauricio, because from the conversations we've had with our doctors, both with Farah and Mauricio, and from what my own investigation, I've been reading quite a lot of medical and scientific articles because I'm fascinated by this virus from the beginning, on all the implications, and I've read some amazing things. There seems like there might be some damage that's left on the lungs and other organs of the people who have had the virus. Apparently, well, they don't know if it's going to be long lasting or not. In China's 2 doctors who had the virus, they woke up, their skin is black. And I don't mean dark. I mean, they could literally be African. I can show you the pictures, it's amazing. Because it had some impact on the liver. But they're theoretically, they will recover, well, their skin color, but also their liver. But from what Farah said, it seems like this virus does some damage internally, and it's not known whether it's lasting or not. But I'm going to ask them to clarify whether doing Kambo after would help the recovery internally, because apparently the damage can be also on people who've been asymptomatic, who've not developed the more serious, or have not been affected as seriously. Maybe it just seemed like a cold, but internally the damage may be a bit deeper on that level, and maybe doing Kambo could protect their body. And with that in mind, we've just decided to do our first online retreat. Please contact us directly. It's going to be May 28th, and we can give you the specifics of how it's going to be, how you can do it from your own home, how you're going to be supported online. The idea is for every facilitator to have maybe 10 participants with whom we'll be in contact visually through some platform. Zoom, live stream, we're not sure exactly which yet. Our tech team are working on it currently, but we will have this online retreat on May 28th. It's also going to be presential in Madrid, Barcelona, and Marbella, because in Spain it's going to be legally possible, although our spaces will be limited because we can only have a third of our maximum occupancy. The retreat will also be presential in Stockholm, Mexico,
In Cologne,
Germany. So in countries where the confinement has been lifted or is in the process of being lifted, the retreat will be presential, May 28th, but everywhere else in the world, online on that date.
They can receive the medicine.
Well, Kambo is unfortunately not an option that you can receive in your house. But we are working for, if some people want to receive certain tools or certain support, that it's sent directly by the same suppliers as we have for our retreats, directly to the house. But contact us directly, and then your personal advisor will be able to give you more information. And I'd like to share this just as bringing this broadcast to closure, because it's that time of the day. It will be available shortly because Ciro is in charge of uploading all of our broadcasts to YouTube, and he's very efficient. So in a few hours, it'll be up. He's giving me the thumbs up. And contact us in any form you wish. Facebook, WhatsApp, phone, email, Instagram, YouTube. Contact us.
And say yes.
And say yes. Or no, but uphold
Or no.
But uphold it.
Yeah. And say yes and uphold it.
So this afternoon we will have the live broadcast with Alberto on air, where we'll go deeper onto what we can and what we cannot. Please join us. Tomorrow morning we have our health and wellness space with Entheos Planet, Mauricio and Farah, medical doctors, with Claudia Pachetti. They'll go into a more physical part of what Claudia wants to present as the entheogenic body. And then from Friday onwards, we will be having the special training in leadership and mentoring with the I Cannot. And Sunday, we will dedicate the whole day to the English language. In the morning, we'll do an integration of the workshop, the leadership and mentoring workshop, but also of anything that's moving for anyone. And I would like to invite everyone who's ever been to any of our retreats, it doesn't matter where or in which language, to join us on Sunday morning. Interact with us. We'll be here. And then Sunday afternoon, Fernanda and I will open a space to go deeper into original wounds. And it will also be in English. So
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank
Rio.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rio.
It's always a note of color when you come. Thank you to our tech team. Always, for always being there, and thank you
Thank
for
you very
being there
much.
from your home, and to the translators.
Yes. Sorry.
Sorry.
If we've kept forgetting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.